Jackson Cain's Case of the Purloined Prophecy. 4. Rare Books. We drove the scarred car toward the Division Street down on further into Fort Worth side of the metro. I asked, truly curious as the answer. So, what will happen because of... I paused looking for the correct word. The accident to the car. He looked over at me and gave me a disgusted sounding snort. Oh, they'll fix it, and then they'll sell it. He shook his head. It's been compromised. I love this damn car. Just change the plates, I suggested. Listen, Jax. I know it doesn't make any sense, but official things don't work that way, Sam told me. Well, I nodded. It does make sense since the government does everything in the least efficient form possible. Sam snorted again and kept driving. You sure that biker dude was a wolf? He asked. I nodded, though I don't know how I was so sure, other than the thug's attitude and, what was it? A feeling. Like I could feel the rage, and that, it's what he was. A ball of rage, like the legends of the old loup-garou from France. A manifestation of pure rage, uncontrollable and unstoppable while the moon was full. Though, I hope that was just an exaggerated legend. Didn't really know that much. I'd only heard of a loup-garou through novels I'd read. We had to get more information. Things were moving out there against us, maybe against humanity. I had to find what they were after and how to stop them. If I could. I had no doubt it would be necessary. These things were evil, just like the vampires. Though, once these things turned, I just didn't know. All I had was legends and stories and movies to go by. Had to find a source. Give me a sec. I pulled out my phone and dialed Dragomir. He picked up after only one ring. What? He asked. Tell me everything you know about werewolves, I said. Just ask your secretary, Jackson. I'm swamped with paperwork since you decided to kill a man on university grounds near a dormitory, he told me. Just tell him it was a werewolf and I was acting in self-defense, I said plainly. The phone went dead. I guess my brother didn't have his sense of humor on today. What the hell would Kitty know about werewolves? I asked out loud to the phone that was dead. Sam laughed. Probably more than either of us. But give these kids a shot. They might know something. I went quiet. It had to be something more than a prophecy. What exactly the prophecy meant, I had less of a clue now than I had before. And any leads that we had went nowhere. Sam was the only hope, through a couple of pothead amateur xenobiologists, and they just weren't my idea of sources. You ever been to this bookshop? Sam asked. I looked at him. No, don't go in for rare books or books about spooky stuff as if it were real. I paused trying to remember. I haven't even bought a comic since the 90s. You haven't missed much, brother. Trust me, nothing at all. He pulled into a little strip mall in a rundown part of the mid-cities. What's even the last novel you read? Tried to read, you mean? I scowled, trying to get the absurd story out of my head. What was it? He smirked as I got out of the car. Oh, one of those new Star Wars books. Can't even remember the name of it. My disgust must have come through my voice. Let me guess. A ship called Vessel? He chuckled and clicked the button that beeped the horn twice to let us know it was locked. I shook my head. And a navigator that was a rock. I spat. Not a rock man or a rock alien or a sentient rock with telepathic powers. It just sat there, a slab of rock, as a navigator on a ship called... I trailed off. Hey, I'm a bit sore about it, okay? Sam laughed as we entered the store. I scowled. The kids weren't playing good old Dungeons and Dragons, but that magic game, card game, made by the same company that bought out TSR and ruined the good part of the games. Diversity. It gets everywhere. Hey, look, guys, it's Ranger Bill. One chubby kid looking about 19 joked. Hey, fellers. Sam looked over the table at the three guys that were sitting, cards laid out. Don't strike me that you played Magic. Oh, no. We don't normally, but we got here early, and it gives us something to do until everyone shows up, the willowy kid said before he paused and looked me in the eye. You don't hear about the werewolves? He asked. Sam and I just looked at each other. How did you know that? Sam asked the kid. He looks pretty spooky to me, and that's the only thing going on. He shrugged. That prophecy thing is supposed to come about soon, or at least that's what we think. A Korean kid sitting there silent nodded. I guess they were all in agreement. I know. Sometimes I'm just lucky. You know what about the prophecy and what it's supposed to do? I asked. Well, sure, the chubby kid said. Hank's got a copy of the translation of the original cuneiform. Hey, I thought the lady at the museum had the only translation, Sam asked me. I shrugged. That's what I let myself believe, I guess. I shook my head. This must come from watching too much TV. Hank? Sam asked. Chubby kid got up. He's in the back. I'll go get him. Needs some carrots anyway. He looked depressed about it as he left. Oh, don't mind him, the willowy kid said, smirking. He put himself on a cleanse to get ready to start a keto diet. He's a little grumpy. Sam nodded as the Korean kid was just shaking his head sadly. Well, he gets over it. If he works out, he'll be in shape in no time. Especially the more exercise he does. The Korean kid got up and went behind the counter as he saw a large man about my age come through the back door. There were packing peanuts on his flannel shirt, and he looked disturbed. Kid says you need to see that prophecy translation book I picked up a few years back. How much do you want for it? I asked. He frowned. Now, before I get to that, I'm afraid I must tell you it's rare. Only 16 copies were ever officially published. They were the only copies found after the print shop that had the original order burned to the ground. I believe it destroyed the original. He thought about it. I'm sure the cost to benefit ratio must have meant that they would never publish it again. How much do you want? I asked. He shrugged. 1,600, he told me. I emptied my pockets and found about 37 cents. I don't suppose you have a law enforcement discount? Hank's eyebrows went up. Afraid not. His face was stern. I'll tell you right now, we ain't gonna have nothing seized here. So, I'm afraid if you ain't got any money, I'm afraid not on the buying of this. That reminds me of a joke. Afraid not, chubby kid said, exaggerating the words. Just pay the man, Sam, I told my friend. Yeah, I know. I presume too much sometimes, but if you knew our background, Samuel Winchester Dean, Texas Ranger, owed me about $10 million by now if the juice was on. Hell, I even paid for his last divorce lawyer. Granted, she wasn't a very good one. She wasn't a very... Let's just say he got screwed. Jax, exactly what do you expect me to pay him with? Sam asked me. I don't get paid until next Friday. And then he shrugged. And I live paycheck to paycheck just like everybody else. I ain't special just because I'm law enforcement. You should go on the take, I grumbled and looked at Hank. Let me make a call. So I walked out of the shop, waited a moment, lit one of my last 2 cigars. We'd have to stop on the way back home and get more. I just hope a random shop had the Dominicans I liked. I dialed Dragomir's personal line. Hey, bro, I said as he picked up and murmured, What? I need to make a purchase, I told him. What and how much? He asked, the Russian getting thick in his voice. I found a copy. I paused as Sam walked out and scowled at me. Okay, fine. We found a copy. I looked at him again and was about to correct myself when Dragomir interrupted with the correction himself. What did Sam find? He asked. A book that is a translation of that prophecy that was taken, I told him, my voice and tone wry. And I just don't get any respect. What's it called? He demanded. I must verify its veracity before I can authorize the transaction. I walked back in and put Dragomir on the speakerphone. My brother repeated his query, and as I looked at Hank, who was stoned, like he was baked. What? What's the name of the book my young friend is trying to purchase? Dragomir asked, his voice tinny over the phone. I think it's Return of Fenrir, he said. That's it, Dragomir said, and before I could ask how we would get the money, Hank pulled out his phone and noted, it was only $1,600. I think your boss made an error. He held up the phone so I could see the screen and the information held there in his banking application. I swallowed hard. All 15 of the other surviving copies have been destroyed. Dragomir's tinny voice came over the iPhone. Where did you find it? He asked. A yard sale, actually. He shrugged, stunned. I bought it in a box of a bunch of secondhand books for I think about $10 whole. I handed Sam my phone, who managed to take the damnable thing off speakerphone. And I whispered harshly, $100,000, man? Are you insane? I meant to be quiet, but I'm sure everybody heard me. That's a hell of a lot more than you're paying me. That book, Dragomir said slowly, is priceless. Absolutely worth at least 10 times 100,000. Collectors have been searching for that book for over 70 years. The old man chuckled before he finished. If he knew that, he left it hanging. Okay, that's it. I'm negotiating my pay scale, I told him. You think so? His voice was amused. Fine, I said. I'm going to get that increase. But you tell me how. Who do I need to talk to? After a moment, Dragomir said, I think my boss, actually. Well, who's that exactly? I demanded. That's top secret and need to know. And I've been told you do not need to know. He said it smoothly, like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. Well, I told him, it's too bad you didn't get to say that to my face so you could see my reaction, I told him. My brother was chuckling. I know your scowl, Jax, he said as he hung up the phone. I went back in, thanked Hank and the kids, whose name were Rodney, Irving, and Joe. That's not my real name, Joe said, but these morons can't pronounce it. He shook his head disgustedly. They pronounce 1,000 Latin names for insects and animals and myths, but they can't say my name. I laughed. Well, what is your name? The word he said was not relatable or repeatable. I didn't even know how to form the sounds he made. Ugh, potheads. Joe eyed me knowingly as I deliberately didn't try to say his name, took possession of the book, and left the store. Sam, can you get me home? I have to go through this thing and get some sleep, I told him. Just read on the way, Sam said, popping on a little nap light. I shook my head. Unless you want to explain the barf that'll be in your floorboard as well as the scar across your hood, I'd best not read while we're moving. Sam shook his head. No, thank you, he told me. I have to drive back my truck in this thing. I don't want it smelling like your stomach goop. Something was bothering him though. His eyes were tight. What's up, brother? I asked, watching the night go by as we drove back up toward the lake where I lived. He shook his head. I don't know, Jax. I really don't. He turned and caught my eyes before he jerked back to watch the highway. It just feels like something's coming. Changes. He told me. I can't explain it. Changes what? I asked. Don't you feel it? Something big's coming. Damn, man, it's like I'm about to trip an ambush, I expect, or it's the expectation, that's it. Like there's impending violence coming. My adrenaline's about to trigger. I let myself go quiet and close my eyes, relaxing everything I could in my body without falling into the floorboard, and just felt. I drove all thought out of my mind as I'd learned to do as a child when I could not figure out a problem. The silence, the pure realm of blankness and emotion, only emotion without thought, helped me understand things, put things together, perspectives, reasons, logic. What I saw but did not see until in this state. I also felt a connection to something. Yes, there were monsters close to the city, close to the lake I called my home. And indeed, something was coming. What was the title of that book again? Sam asked, bringing me out of my trance. Fenrir, I told him. I think that has something to do with the fact the translator was Nordic. It should probably say wolf god or something, I said. And just how the hell do you know about wolf gods? Sam demanded. Or what Nordic translators would say. And I didn't know. I have no idea. But I know it's right. Must have read something somewhere or something. Maybe I watched it on the Discovery Channel or History Channel. And I'm just remembering a fact I picked up somewhere. But it is a fact, I can tell. Sam just nodded, though it was a dubious thing. You reading that whole thing when you get home? He asked. At least once through, I said. And then I have to get some sleep. Hopefully, it'll give us some answers and I'll get back to you tomorrow. When we returned, there were no beings in my home or office. So I went to my bedroom and sat in the little recliner in the corner. I had a light that was supposed to provide natural sunlight in a dark room. It didn't take me long to read through the thing at least once, but I couldn't understand half of what I was reading. Everything was couched in myth and legend, all metaphor. Metaphors about aspects of the Nordic gods I didn't even understand. The thing was, the things I did understand, I hope those were metaphors too. Hell, I prayed they were metaphors. Otherwise, the whole world was fucked. Just fucked. My life, goddamn Disneyland. Thank you for listening to this episode of Jackson Cain's Case of the Purloined Prophecy. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. And if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. There are over 100 stories, original fiction, in various genres. And please share this out. and let everybody else know about these free audio stories available. Again, thank you, and have a good day.